The United States teeters on the precipice of an impending financial calamity, a precipitous descent into the abyss of a potential U.S. debt default. A whirlwind of unforeseen circumstances has culminated in an alarming impasse within the U.S. Congress, where the elusive compromise on raising the debt ceiling remains frustratingly out of reach. As the deadline ominously looms overhead, the nation's economic stability hangs precariously in the balance. The ramifications of a U.S. debt default would reverberate throughout the global financial fabric, propelling shockwaves that reverberate far and wide. Interest rates, once docile, would suddenly soar to unprecedented heights, triggering an exorbitant surge in borrowing costs. Already, the global markets quiver with trepidation. As stocks plummet, currencies whirl into turmoil, and investors frantically scurry to seek secure harbors for their embattled assets. An eerie specter of a looming global recession casts its ominous shadow across the horizon. Such is the intricate interconnectedness of the world's economies that no nation would remain untainted by the repercussions of a U.S. debt default. We teeter on the precipice of an unprecedented global financial catastrophe, where the looming question looms large: will the United States default on its mounting debt? Brace yourself as we plunge into the depths of this critical juncture, where the fate of the dollar crisis and the impending menace of a U.S. debt default intertwine in a perilous dance. But before we embark on this journey, don't forget to click that coveted like button below and subscribe to Econosphere. Now, let us delve into the heart of the matter: the U.S. debt ceiling crisis, an economic tempest that threatens to unleash its fury upon the shores of the United States as early as June 1st if Congress fails to lift the shackles of its borrowing limits. Brace yourself, for this cataclysmic event could potentially ignite a global economic maelstrom of unparalleled proportions. Amidst this high-stakes showdown, Democratic leaders fervently advocate for raising the limit, while their Republican counterparts insist on attaching certain conditions and implementing spending cuts as prerequisites. It is a clash of titans, a confrontation whose outcome holds the key to the fate of the U.S. economy. Recently, in a dramatic turn of events, Joe Biden, flanked by leaders from both the House and Senate representing both parties, convened to deliberate on this impending economic cataclysm, a crisis that some assert they have contributed to instigating. Now, let us unravel the enigma known as the debt ceiling. Have you ever pondered the boundaries that circumscribe the government's capacity to amass debt? Enter the stage. The debt ceiling, a formidable statute that establishes an upper echelon, a threshold beyond which the government's borrowing prowess cannot venture, constraining its ability to fulfill its fiscal obligations. This limit assumes an integral role in shaping the nation's financial landscape, leaving indelible imprints upon the socio-economic fabric. Envision a labyrinthine financial conundrum, where the futures of federal employees, the military, Social Security, Medicare, national debt interest, and tax refunds teeter upon a precipice. This perplexing puzzle revolves around a pivotal decision made within the hallowed halls of the U.S. Congress. Periodically, Congress casts its vote, determining whether to elevate or suspend the figurative glass ceiling colloquially referred to as the debt ceiling, a demarcation that dictates the extent to which the government may borrow to honor its obligations. Presently, this threshold stands at a staggering $31.4 trillion, an exorbitant sum surpassed back in January, forcing the Treasury Department to deploy extraordinary measures in a bid to temporarily assuage the situation while seeking a viable resolution. The political arena transforms into a theater of high-stakes drama, where the U.S. debt ceiling assumes the role of a central protagonist locked in a tense battle for supremacy, while raising the limit has traditionally been a routine affair. This time around, the quest for common ground appears bewilderingly elusive. Tick-tock, the clock relentlessly ticks onward, and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen issues a stern, unwavering warning: without an increase in borrowing capacity, the United States risks finding itself shackled, unable to fulfill its financial commitments as early as June 1st. The specter of a debt default looms large, casting a foreboding shadow over the nation's future. But what unfolds if the debt ceiling remains unraised, plunging the government into the abyss of default? The consequences are dire, painting a grim portrait of limitations hindering the fulfillment of crucial obligations. The salaries of federal employees and military personnel hang precariously in the balance, while pensions tremble on the precipice of uncertainty. A domino effect ensues, reverberating across various sectors, triggering the closure of national parks and other vital agencies. Companies and charitable organizations heavily reliant on government funds grapple with daunting challenges, while even the accuracy of weather forecasts, intertwined with data provided by the government-funded National Weather Service, becomes perilously uncertain. Imagine, if you will, a scenario where the United States, the bedrock of the global financial system, tumbles into the abyss of debt default. The ramifications would be seismic, sending shockwaves reverberating throughout the interconnected web of the financial landscape. Should the government falter and fail to honor interest payments on its towering debt, the inevitable consequence manifests a default of catastrophic proportions. Remember that teeny-tiny accidental default in 1979? Well, get ready for the mind-blowing chaos if an intentional default happens. Brace yourself, because over $500 billion of U.S. debt is traded daily, making the consequences even more mind-numbingly severe. According to Moody's Analytics, if this never-ending standoff continues, the stock market will crash by nearly a fifth, and the economy will shrink by a whopping 4%. Can you even wrap your head around the sheer magnitude of that catastrophe? We're talking about over 7 million jobs vaporized, leaving individuals and communities in an eternal state of despair. It's an absolute nightmare. But hold on tight, folks, because the insanity doesn't stop there. If investors catch a whiff of risk in U.S. debt, they'll demand sky-high interest rates when lending to the government. Brace yourselves for the domino effect of financial mayhem. Borrowing money for homes, cars, and anything else will become an agonizingly costly nightmare for everyone. It's like a twisted game where we're all stuck in an eternal loop of financial doom. Now, get ready for the most mind-boggling part. People are actually considering prioritizing interest payments to avoid the dreaded debt default. But here's the kicker, it's a political minefield. How can we justify favoring fat cats like financial institutions, pension funds, and foreign investors while leaving retirees and regular folks high and dry? It's an outrageous puzzle that defies all reason. And now, hold your breath, because we're diving headfirst into the thrilling adventure of Congress. Get ready for a wild ride filled with mind-blowing strategies and jaw-dropping ideas. Brace yourselves for this one. Someone actually proposed creating a gargantuan $1 trillion coin to tackle the debt. Can you believe the audacity? And that's not all. Some daring souls suggest a presidential declaration, making it a constitutional duty to honor government debt. Are we living in an alternate reality or what? Remember the nail-biting showdown of 2011? Negotiations raced against the clock in an intense battle. Finally, a last-minute compromise emerged. But scars from that tumultuous time still haunt us. Even delays in reaching a resolution carry severe consequences. The 2011 standoff triggered a downgrade in the U.S. credit rating, sending shockwaves through the stock market. The public bore the weight of at least $1.3 billion in higher borrowing costs that year alone. It's a never-ending nightmare. Now, let's peek into the Democrats' playbook. The Biden administration quickly dismissed the untested idea of cherry-picking which bills to pay and which to ignore. They argue it's unfair, would cause economic chaos, and create logistical nightmares. So, if a default happens, the Treasury might just delay all payments until some revenue miraculously appears. It's like playing a twisted game of financial hide-and-seek. But hold your horses, because the chances of a significant breakthrough seem slimmer than a thread. Democrats want a straightforward increase, but those cunning Republicans demand hefty concessions for their precious debt votes. It's an exhausting tug-of-war where patience wears thinner than a spider's web. Now, brace yourselves for the land of uncertainty. Can the Treasury scrape by and fulfill its obligations until June 15th? If they survive that long, quarterly tax receipts might provide a much-needed lifeline, potentially postponing the default until the following month's end. If they make it to June, the Treasury could tap into around $145 billion in extraordinary measures to keep the borrowing power alive. It's a desperate dance with fate. As the weeks roll on, we'll slowly gain more clarity on whether the Treasury can cling on until mid-June. That would give Congress and the White House a sliver of extra time to haggle over a debt limit agreement, or so says Shai Akabas, the BPC's Director of Economic Policy. But let's not kid ourselves, folks. We're teetering on the edge of a financial precipice, and the stakes have never been higher. Will the Treasury miraculously make it to mid-June, resorting to those mind-boggling extraordinary measures to keep their borrowing power afloat? Or will the crushing cash crunch deliver a fatal blow to the already fragile U.S. economy? The clock is ticking, and the countdown continues. Each passing day brings us closer to a tipping point where decisions made by those politicos in Congress and the White House will shape the economic landscape for years to come. It's a time of heightened concern and nail-biting uncertainty. The delicate balance between political negotiations and fiscal responsibility hangs precariously in the balance. How do you think this heart-stopping debt limit standoff will ultimately unfold? Will compromise triumph, bringing relief and stability, or will the divides deepen, hurtling us into uncharted territory with grave consequences? The answer lies in the chaotic winds of uncertainty. My friends, stay tuned, and may the financial gods have mercy on us all.
Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing for more content. Take care.